Okay, we're going to do it live. Welcome back to Matt Beam Would Like a Word for the first time ever. This is may also be called Not Coaching the Coaches.
And what would
Once
be
we
that
were
word?
coaches. Once we were coaches.
What did
would
Jeff
be
say?
that word? What would be that word?
Yeah, it would be a series of them about really unplannable shit. We were going to talk about, and probably not naughty words. That's probably inappropriate.
All right, if we're going to set standards, let's start with that one.
We can always build in standards as we go. Last week we talked about talking about some ABB stuff, right? The thing. I also have a topic I want to raise at some point, maybe not for today. I'm seeing Robert C. Martin post on various places about using Uncle Bob Martin.
Uncle Bob?
Yeah, the guy who wrote Clean Code and Clean Agile and Clean everything, Clean Your room. And
I thought we said what language.
well, we said we'd have standards. We didn't say we'd meet them. So, yeah. He's doing... So my question for Bob and for everybody else is like, we've known about TDD and refactoring and all of this code quality stuff that makes us more productive because it's easier, it's human readable. Is doing it with AI fundamentally any different than doing it with humans? And how does he do it specifically? That's my question. That's for a topic. I don't know if you guys want to talk about that today or do the ABB thing. But those are the two things I'm thinking about this morning. How about you?
I don't know enough about what Uncle Bob is doing
Yeah.
to speak about what Uncle Bob is doing right
Yeah.
now.
I would agree.
I don't really either.
Uncle Bob is Uncle Bob. So
And I'm sure he is very entertaining in his execution of whatever it is he's doing.
He's posting he's got these bathrobe rants that he posts where he literally, it's in the morning.
It had to happen sooner or later.
no thanks.
He just does it for fun nowadays, he says. So, yeah. I
That's
think we'll
not
get
a-
to that.
It's not a picture.
He's an
that I
open
want
robe.
Yes, open kimono.
to- Please.
So I guess we should go to ABB. Jeff, you're the one who has. Mike, did you know something?
Well, no, the ABB conversation really wasn't about ABB. It was about Joe Justice's conversation with ABB, which was
Yes.
very similar to Joe Justice's conversation pretty much everywhere Joe Justice is going right now.
He's
And
focused.
it's not even right now. It's like these were all like 2022, like a whole bunch
22,
of
23.
yeah, a whole series of conversations about modular, not agile development, but iterative. It's the model that has been adopted at Tesla. It's the model that is now being apparently brought into Toyota as well.
Amazon's been doing it for years.
Yeah, we're talking about modular hardware, rapid, innovative development.
Yeah,
Tesla.
it's in hardware, it's in software, it's in medical devices. Apparently, Neuralink is doing it as well. And that's the thing that struck me about it is it's not new. It's like the pattern behind microservices, right? And so, right?
Yeah, but it's
yeah.
applied. It's almost like saying macro services or taking your entire production system and turning it into microservices. It's every aspect of the organization is wrapped around production in service of a goal. And, everything we've been talking about in the last, I don't know, at least 5 years, maybe the last decade, has been around following certain values to manage your company against values, not against pure profit. Like it feels like that when they're described, it's like they're not worried about the share price of the company. They're worried about achieving the goals of the company. Is it SpaceX that's got the goal to to expand the light or share the light of humanity, take the light of humanity to this, not humanity,
Consciousness?
something
Human
like
consciousness?
that. It's something like that. Taking consciousness to the stars.
Multiplanetary.
And everything they're doing is with that ultimate goal, that ultimate flag planted in the future, but not worrying about solving all those problems today, worrying about the next step to get closer to it today.
Well, I feel like there's a couple of things that wrapped up there. There's one is like, what's the goal of the company?
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is how do you achieve the goal, which is what the modularity is about.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I don't know if we talked about the values versus the goals of companies a while ago. And we talked about theory of constraints and how everything should be measured in dollars or not.
Well, you know, what's interesting is in the one of the videos, the justice videos, they talk about value, but the value is not represented in profits. Okay? And so they can still pursue improvement, rapid innovation through the principles of the theory of constraint. And so, you know, getting rid of the bottlenecks, find the bottleneck. What's the bottleneck right now? Find it and eliminate it. Fix it. And that's all done in a slightly different context. I'm not suggesting that it's not for profit, but profit is almost irrelevant.
Maybe it's because,
do you see what I mean?
It's different measures for different levels. Like at the level of the organization has to make a profit, otherwise they can't continue. But at the level of how do you get product out the door, it's at the level of 1 gram lighter, 1 milliwatt power consumed less, 1 cent cheaper to produce, right? Maybe both of them are true at different layers of levels of analysis. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and so, 1 cent cheaper, 1 gram lighter, 1 watt more efficient, watt for more output, something along those lines.
Yeah.
So if one were to take the macro of the organization, you said, we can make a profit doing what we're doing right now. So anything that we can do to reduce cost, to increase longevity, to hit those metrics, will only make us more healthy in where we are now. Like so it's like make our company make this company better than it was yesterday. And if it's already good, then tomorrow will be better. So I think then that kind of takes the whole conversation about, we have to maximize profitability off the table. It says we're always evolving, we're always getting better. That's not our focus. Like our focus is to produce the product faster, cheaper, more powerful, more energy efficient, all that. And with each of those incremental improvements, the other metrics of the macroeconomics of the organization will improve at the same time.
Yeah, it's almost like profitability is like a governance layer to make sure the organization is healthy, right? Like
it's a lagging indicator.
It's a lagging indicator, but it's not the goal of or the purpose.
Right,
of the mission.
exactly. Are you producing value? Because ultimately, it's not, to Mike's point, so much producing a product, because how many products fall flat? Are you producing value for some segment of customers and continually doing that better, faster, cheaper?
Yeah, it's one thing to say I want to create a domestic electric vehicle industry to save the planet in North America in 2002. It's another thing to say people actually want to buy those cars, and it's doable, right? You make a car that is cheap enough and good enough that people actually want to do it, so I can achieve that mission. And the way we do that is to make stuff incrementally better and cheaper and faster until we get to a point and where we reach the KPIs where it's actually going to happen. It's all different parts of the same system.
Yeah, and the Joe Justice videos that went into that Tesla production system, or that's not what he called it, but whatever the Tesla model, it achieves that through modularity. It hyper modularized the production of the cars, and just we can just focus on the cars, and such that every component of the car, every module of the car, can evolve under its own time frame, its own pace, and still remain compatible with the rest of the modules. And if they're going to make a change that's going to change the compatibility, they also have to make the interface that will allow backward compatibility to be maintained.
Yes, which sounds just like microservices, right? You have a contract between them, and you're free to innovate behind that. Not really, Jeff?
I think yes, but it's microservices is an example of that.
That's what I mean. It rhymes with
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
It's the same. It's like my point is, it's not like a thing that Joe Joseph just suddenly came up with one day, right? It was a pattern that was existing, and they happened to really, use it to great effect across all those companies.
Well, if you recall, in at least one of the videos, he talked about where he learned about the modularity thing was from Bill Gates, and that Bill Gates said at the top of every meeting, "How can we do this in parallel?" And so that's kind of that very beginning, that the seed that fed Justice this whole notion of, okay, modularity, and he just happened to take it from a software world into a hardware world. And that's, so when you talk about microservices, immediately I think, software.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I mean.
But he actually took it outside of that and took the whole concept of modularity and figuring out what are all the things that we can do in parallel and work on them simultaneously, recognizing that, okay, there are going to be some interconnections. We have to figure out how to focus on stabilizing those interconnections, and whether it's using adapters or whatever it happens to be.
Isn't that funny? The company that is famous to, you can take a binary that was written for Windows 95 and run it on the current version of Windows, is my understanding. So the company is known for backwards compatibility, right? Probably not a coincidence.
Sure, you can. It's just you might not be able to see it because it'll be done like that because the hardware has changed. But isn't it ironic that Agile found its start in Lean, which was hardware, took what it had, came up with new paradigms that have now been brought back to hardware. So it's like a feedback loop. Like everybody is benefiting from the same rhyming tool set.
Yep. It points to some underlying commonality, or I don't know what you'd call it. There's deep resonance here.
Yeah. And you can't really say it's right. It's like they're not all adopting that. Like these are the Musk companies are not necessarily pioneering, but they're definitely jumping in and using them to that full extent. And the only reason I'm saying not pioneering is other people are also doing it, and Joe Justice did it with other people before that.
Yeah, totally.
But they've definitely grabbed it with both hands, and they're riding that thing all the way.
Seems to be working.
Yeah, well, so I was thinking back to last year. We were having a conversation about, we ended up talking about SpaceX and the rockets blowing up, and then Musk showing up on camera going, "We had a successful test," and everyone going, "Well, that's just putting lipstick on a pig. He blew up a rocket. Something didn't go right."
Yeah.
But the video I was watching today explained why that was okay. Because the way the modular production system works is every day you build something different. And when you're building rockets, that means you're building rockets. And he said they had a surplus of rockets just sitting there, just stacking up that they didn't have use for, that were now obsolete rockets because they've already made the better rocket yesterday than they made
had
last
inventory,
week.
so it was technically waste, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's
So they took the waste and they made it useful. They put it on a launch
extracted
pad.
Information from the
Exactly.
waste. Yeah. So when you hear people like, "Oh, that's dumb. He failed," they don't
Yeah.
really understand what's going on, right?
Well, remember that our concept of failure, and it's part of the problem that, companies today, they don't make any progress. Oh, we haven't innovated a thing in the last 20 years. Well, if you're doing things the same way, as I've said before, that you have 20 years ago, then you're failing. Now, you just don't know that you're failing. The reality is, those that are pushing the boundaries, they're the ones that are actually innovating and doing things that are going to serve and add value down the road.
Yeah, and you might not be competing with them yet, or they might not have released the thing yet that will affect you in the marketplace, but it's not like that isn't happening and there won't be an adjustment.
Can you imagine that there was an organization like SpaceX in every industry? Think of some of the most inefficient industries. Can you imagine having a SpaceX in each of those industries? It would turn each of those industries, I would say, upside down. Because if you're not going to innovate fast, you're going to die that much faster, right?
It's hard to imagine. In fact, I was listening to Mark Andreessen a couple nights ago on Lenny's podcast, and he was talking about how what did he say? The pace of technological change has really slowed down in America. Like the difference between, think about what it was like in 1870 versus 1930, right? And then think about 1930 versus 1945 maybe, or 50. And then 1950.
I don't know. I wasn't around.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't either. But like his thesis, what he's saying is that like it was changing very rapidly between 1870 and 1930, and then still rapidly, but less rapidly after World War II to the 1970s. After the 1970s, it's really not changing that much, right? Like we live in this world of like dams and houses and buildings and processes and airplanes that were built in the 70s. We still use that shit, right? If, you can go back to 1973 and there's no cell phones, but it's more or less the world we live in, right? Whereas if you started in 1970 and went back to 1930, pretty different, right? A lot of stuff is missing. If you go from 1930 to 1870, people didn't have fucking indoor plumbing, right? The rate of change is slowing down is what he said. I don't know, he reads a lot of books. It makes sense to me.
And
I'm not saying he's right, but
it's I've heard a parallel for that in biology, where they say the pace of evolution, at least for humanity, has slowed down because we're actually saving the less viable.
Yeah. The inputs have not caught. What would you say?
Well, the natural selection isn't kicking in, right?
Yeah.
It would.
We made everything super safe, and everybody gets to continue no matter what. And as a result, the selection pressure's diminished.
So
So
there's probably a parallel there. Go ahead.
But when you think about it, change over the last, 30 years, 40 years, I would suggest that it has changed rapidly because we have the advance of computing power. Every cell phone has more computing power than the early NASA rockets. So you tell me that the pace of change is slowing down. Maybe from one perspective.
Yeah.
Maybe, it depends on the lens that you're looking through.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's purely true in my mind.
Guessing he would say he meant macro overall, and there might be exceptions, like definitely Moore's law is an exception. I'm guessing that's what he might say. But you're right. This happened in the context of a conversation where this is now changing again, and the Moore's law, the silicon stuff, has now led to an acceleration in the AI world, where now we're going back to 1870 in terms of the rate of change. It's now sped up so quickly that we're about to be disoriented again.
Maybe it's that the place of change moves, right? So when we were all mechanical analog systems, that the pace happened in the digital realm, and the digital realm got the silicon realm, let's say, that got more advanced very rapidly, and things got much smaller. But the pace of change, if you just look at the silicon realm right now, doesn't look dramatic anymore, right? It's like the changes are smaller. This year's iPhone is very similar to last year's iPhone. They might be but now they're adding the innovation in different places. So the innovation is shifted maybe into the AI realm, or something along those lines. So maybe it's just, where you're looking.
I think that's right. I've heard somebody speculate that the pane of glass is going to be like, I don't know who said it. Maybe in 5 years we'll just have a blank pane of glass, and it'll just be hooked up to AI, and you won't, all of your UI, your UI. You won't have apps necessarily. You won't need apps. You just generate some UI on the fly based on whatever you think you tell the AI you want to do. That maybe the iPhone. I don't know what's going to happen.
So if that were true, as soon as you said that, I went, well, there's a whole lot of app companies that are going to get very upset. And okay, but this dovetails with the reason why I think the pace of innovation slows down, because now you've got all these players in that space who are going, well, wait a minute, that's our thing. You don't take away our thing. We will hold tight to that, and we will try. And so you've got look at all the big companies that waited to jump into the Agile bandwagon because they had their thing. They had their way of doing things, and they weren't going to go jumping and retooling for some upstart idea.
Yep.
And you can still see that resonating in organizations today. This is the way we've always done things. This is right. And there's people out there that are the organizations that are being more nimble and more adaptive and more innovative, and then the big company just snatches them up and snuffs them out. It kills the competition instead of structuring or embracing the competition.
Yeah, there's a natural life cycle of this stuff. The existing big players get disrupted. The stuff that comes along is just good enough to be not a replacement, but they end up losing market share.
But go back to the evolution analogy. Is they're keeping their line alive over by snuffing out the new one, instead of by embracing or allowing it to evolve, or even by going, we should evolve too. They're holding back. Now, every organization out there in the world is going, oh, we need an AI thing, even if we don't have a good reason to have an AI thing.
Well, they don't know how to utilize the tool. It's like, oh, I got to go get me one of those fancy air nailers. You don't even know how to use it.
You're in accounting, Bob. You should leave that to the home builders. Yes, I see that too. I see there's a lot of money being spent, but I'm not sure that they're all getting value. It seems like they're not all getting value.
And that gets to something I thought was interesting in the videos, the Justice videos, was the notion of mob AI and the utilization of AI within Tesla. And they're using that in what I think of as more traditional AI, not this Johnny-come-lately large language model crap. They use it as collecting data, building their own database of the things, the processes, the feedback that's coming back from all their machines that are out there, cars and trucks, and they're utilizing that to teach a better model.
Well, they train it on a daily basis.
Yeah, they
train
exactly. They're training
Yeah.
on their own data, whether it's process data, performance data, whatever it happens to be. That's a more useful way of advancing your processes, your products, whatever it happens to be. Yeah, I guess I don't see how right now using large language models, and that seems to be what a lot of companies right now are, let's see if we can get ChatGPT to do. They're missing the boat. They're missing the boat.
So let's talk about that for a second, because that's a great example. So, like, the one that I remember from Joe's is like, okay, so let's say you're making a battery pack, right? And you've got CAD designs. Okay, so you've got documents that describe the current design, CADs, and you've got documents that describe the manufacturing process for it, right? So you've got the design, what it is, and the process, how to build it, right? And then you make one little tweak to try to make it a gram lighter or a milliwatt more efficient or a cent easier, cheaper to produce or a second quicker to produce. And then so you make that change, you validate that change, and that goes into the database. And so then when they're talking every day, okay, how do we need to change it in this way? And so basically they ask the AI, what could we do to make an improvement? And the AI comes back with these dozen things, right? And they try one of them, and if it works, they say, yes, that's good, do that. So that's basically how they train it. They say, you came up with these things, these were bad guesses, this was a good guess, keep doing more like that. And every day that builds up as well, and so that's how it gets better and better. Is that the feedback, the training? It's reinforcement learning based on human input. Is that right?
Yeah, the only thing that struck me as being off on that is you said they start with the CAD and they don't start with the CAD.
Right.
Well, no, they don't start with the CAD.
And the only CAD,
CAD
is the CAD defines the production steps. So the point on that is to Jeff's point, they're constantly gathering data. The AI is constantly feeding data, but it's feeding data in a context of the device that's giving them the data. Because of the way that they rapidly evolve the hardware, every Tesla vehicle is potentially unique. It's some micro change different than every other Tesla vehicle. And the AI knows every component of every car and can read the feedback in the context. I'm looking at the heat pump. How efficient is the heat pump running in this context, in this vehicle with these other systems, and comparing that to the next day's heat pump,
right?
And looking for the data they're training the AI on. They're not wasting its time wondering how to speak in the language of Shakespeare. They're telling it how to interpret data in a context.
Yes. I guess my point is you can see the rapid feedback loops there, and each one of those turns through the feedback loop is documented somehow, so that the AI can compare this result versus the next result versus the next result, and that's how it gets smarter over time. Which is interesting in the context of Jeff, you're making the point that companies are just like getting this off-the-shelf chat GPT and saying, hey, how do I improve this existing system that I bought from somebody else, by the way? Which is
that or
totally
Claude or whatever. Yeah, exactly. Think about
not the
this.
same thing. Yeah.
Weather prediction has gotten vastly improved over the last.
Actual meteorological.
Meteorologically has gotten so much better than it was 10 years ago, 5 years ago. Why is that? Because these models, whether they're talking about the European model or the GFS model or whatever model, those models, that's AI.
Yeah. It's reinforcement learning over time.
Right. They have a mountain of data to draw from, all the variables and factors that go into the making of weather, are all those variables. They're able to suck that in, and the models know, okay, historically, this is what happens when you have two air masses that meet, blah, blah, blah. And it can produce a prediction. And that's why those models, whether it's for a hurricane or a tornado or whatever it happens to be, are much more accurate today than they were yesterday. So, AI isn't something new. It's been here all along.
But if you are in charge of an organization or a process or anything that has not been using AI to date, and you're thinking about bringing it in, you obviously can't just staple it on or spread it thin like peanut butter. You have to think about how to integrate it into how the actual. I guess this is an obvious point.
How do you do it? No,
Okay.
You say it's an obvious point, but to you and I, it seems obvious in retrospect, but apparently it's not so obvious because nobody's doing it like that.
So, Jeff, you've got a point. Is that this is AI? But let's look at this. Agile existed before it was called Agile,
And after.
but point being, the practices that became Agile pre-existed, and they were packaged together. The model, so you can say weather prediction is AI. It's always been AI, but it wasn't called AI at the time, right? So AI is like Agile, the marketing term. It's the term we've put on it. It's the name we've put on these practices that have pre-existed. This deep learning, machine assisted analysis, and we've just tacked it with the name AI because that's what's becoming popular to call things, using the computer for this stuff.
You sure it's not different in some way?
How so?
I guess I'm trying to see. So when I think of Agile, I think of us moving with a quick, easy grace. When I think of AI, I think of using machines to tease out patterns from voluminous amounts of data that are not apparent to the human brain.
Well, okay, I'm not saying AI equals Agile. What I'm saying is,
I was confused.
what I'm saying is there's a similarity in the terminology of Agile coming into existence to package a bunch of pre-existing concepts.
Oh,
it's
I
the same
see.
thing as AI coming into existence to package a bunch of pre-existing concepts.
Yes.
So.
Once we were coaches and we were trying to get people to do Agile stuff.
Yeah.
And now we are, I don't know what we are, but we're reckoning with AI. And yeah, the perception really matters a lot, honestly.
An analogy that comes to mind, and tell me if I'm off base with this, but
You're off base with this.
okay.
You're welcome.
When you
threw him off.
I know.
No, when you hear people,
That's the
or at least
word.
in the past, when you heard people refer to Agile, and they automatically thought Scrum.
Yes.
Oh, we're going to do Scrum. No, that's not. But there's this stamp, this Agile stamp that you put on. Is oh yeah, you mean Scrum? No, that's not.
Or even
what
better,
I mean.
pure Agile. I don't know if you've heard that one.
I
In a
think we've heard all of them by this
in a
point.
similar manner, then people see the advent of LLMs over the last 5, 6, 7 years, and they automatically think, oh, the stamp on that is AI, and so they automatically associate AI with the LLMs. Yeah, well, here's the reality. Predictive models have existed for a whole lot longer than that, and that's not the only realm of AI. But we seem to want to put a stamp on something and then associate some little bitty piece of it as, oh, well, that's AI. Well, okay, but that's not all of AI.
Yeah.
Just like the umbrella of Agile and agility encompasses all kinds of things.
But we're not beating people up for that, are we?
I don't know. Are we? Are we not?
I think we should. I think we should give some. I think we should look upon it charitably and give people grace, because it's like what we're asking them to do is be discerning and look deeply into the thing and understand what's going on beneath the surface. And it's like, well, another way to think about this is that like a thought is expensive, right? And we live in these meat sacks that, for most of our history, starvation was one of our biggest risks, right? Thought takes a lot of calories to run this meat computer, right? And so that's why. Do you remember that book, How to Pitch Anything? Have you
I'm
ever
still
read
waiting
that?
for you to finish the pitch. Where are you going with this?
Here's the thing: if I confront you with
Yeah,
something,
flappy meat sack.
this is literally my point. If I confront you with something new, if you take this idea in and you bring it up to your forebrain and you think about it deeply and blah, 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 all of this stuff, it takes a lot of time and effort and energy and calories, literally calories, right? And so the neural networks that we've got now, like, the point of the book is if you're trying to sell something to somebody and you're bringing them something, a novel idea, they're like, it doesn't make it past the brainstem, right? People have this natural filter. Like, if they don't have to think about it, they won't think about it.
Well,
And
if it gets perceived as a threat, it'll get rejected out of hand. If it's,
Exactly.
and that's before it ever gets to the frontal lobe. That's at the,
100%.
that's lizard brain stuff.
Exactly. It doesn't make it past the lizard brain.
Yeah.
So this is a thing that's happening in everybody's mental processes all day, every day. The smartest people you know are looking at something below their conscious mind awareness. They're like, can I eat this? Is this a threat? Can I reproduce with it? Right? Can I ignore it? Right? If not, I'm not thinking about it.
Or I can think about it because it's so.
You could, but
right,
like that's the challenge for people, is to frame it. So why do they have to think about it? Why is it useful? Because otherwise, the default answer is no. I'm moving on. I'm too busy. I've got too many things to think about.
All right, but where were you going with the expensive meat sack? And you seemed like you were trying to head toward an analogy to AI or something. So or,
I don't want to. I don't want to criticize people from not thinking deeply enough about a thing if we haven't framed it for them and made it obvious about why they should think about it.
Ooh. That's interesting.
I don't.
It's easy to
think
criticize people and say, those people over there are doing dumb. Those dumb people are doing dumb stuff. And it's hard to remember that, there's our smart people who are confronted with this set of, like, I might not do any better in that situation. Right?
I get what you're saying. Showing compassion and grace is an appropriate response.
That's right.
That said,
Get your shit together.
I get, in a way, yeah. I mean, I guess there's a part of me that feels like I have an expectation, and that everybody has that
Yeah.
gray matter,
Yeah.
and we talk about critical thinking, but if you're not expecting people to use those critical thinking skills, then what? We're just automatons?
Totally agree. And the more senior you are, the more responsibility you have, impact on people's lives, your decision making is, the more I say, get your shit together and figure it out. Absolutely. That's fair. I'm just saying, I'm looking at people on socials, and like the smartest people we have apparently in software have officially thrown their hands up and been like, this is moving too fast. I can't keep track of it all. So it's just so challenging for everybody.
Okay. So what's the answer then?
I think it's agency. I think the most scarce commodity now is just the willingness to constrain the solution space, make it safe, right? Contain the blast radius, and fucking do something. Like now, right? And make your feedback loops as quick as possible and high quality as possible, and leverage all the artificial intelligence you can use, and go now. Do it.
Okay, so backing
and
up
pray.
a second ago, you said something like that it's too much for them to comprehend. It's too much change, too much stuff.
Yeah.
So, has their space of observation grown too much beyond their ability to contain it? And so, I'm trying to see where you're going with the AI, because it seems like what you're saying is we'll let the AI worry about the details, and worry is the wrong word, but pay attention to the
I don't
details.
think I heard that, but okay.
I don't.
Because, well, see, I was just trying, because I'm
Yeah.
still trying to figure out what the expensive meat sack point was.
Oh, the expensive meat sack point is that, like, if we don't, and this is kind of the point of the book, How to Pitch Anything. Like, you have to understand why it's relevant for people, what the impact is for them, why it's important to them. They have a certain amount of focus and energy and attention they can spend every day, and I'm asking them to take it away from this and put it into this. And their default answer is no. If I do that, if I think deeply and critically about everything I could potentially think deeply and critically about, I will starve. I will lose attention for the right stuff, and I will be a failure. And that problem's getting worse every day.
Well,
So it's really it's the challenge is sense making, right? Helping humans understand what the hell's going on here and how to frame it and how to think about it in a way that's useful, and helping them take action because the timelines are shortening.
So when you find yourself overwhelmed, because it sounds like that's what you're describing as the sense of overwhelm,
Yeah.
and it can be bewildering and paralyzing.
Mm-hmm.
Throw up your hands. I don't know. So when you find yourself overwhelmed, what do?
I lay down on the couch and cuddle the dogs and watch YouTube videos and just try not to.
So
think
you
about
simplify. You simplify,
anything. Yeah.
and
Well,
you focus on that simplification.
Yeah.
he withdrew and he
Okay.
focused on resetting,
Okay.
which might lead to an innovative thought when he stops worrying about it that solves the problem that he threw up his hands for, or it will not, and the problem will still be sitting there waiting. It's just he will change his approach or his mindset when he re-engages with it.
Yeah, rest, recreate. I tell you what I can't do. I can't keep pressing on the same stuff, right? It's like taking an engine and running it. If the red line is 6,000, you can't run it at 6,000 for any period of time, right? You gotta bring it back down. We're reaching the point where the AI is going to be way smarter than us, and if we try to keep up, like what did John Henry do, right? In that fable, when John Henry was the steel driving man, right?
His heart explodes.
His heart explodes. That's right. He was the fastest way to get the steel into the ground for a long time, and then the machine came along, and he tried to take on the machine's terms, and his heart exploded. That's I think a relevant
Well,
lesson.
yeah, but the pile driver was a very effective pile driver. It wasn't a multitasker.
Totally.
And John Henry was a multitasker who thought his only value was in the pile driving.
Exactly. That was his mistake. He should have jumped on top of the machine and made it part of his suite of services. Which is
It's gonna make is John Henry needs a pile driving machine with a very hard to push button that only he can push.
John Henry should have gone from being a pile driving man to a pile driving and planning man.
Yeah.
Project management and pile driving, planning and driving is one of the things he does.
So to take us back to the whole modularity and that as a potential approach
That's right.
for modern companies
God, this is
to
fun.
take. I guess here's a question then, because I saw, at least for me, a whole lot of value in doing the whole modularity approach. And Tesla and the other Musk companies have also implemented a whole lot of other things, not just focused on the modularity, they've put together a number of concepts that have really helped them accelerate their innovation. But here's the thing. If I'm an organization that endeavors to do something like that, where do I start? Where do I start? Because I've got I don't know, let's say modestly, I'm a $1 billion company. It's not too bad.
Just another modest mom and pop $1 billion shop.
Exactly. Where do I start? Because I'm afraid, fear drives a lot of things, I'm afraid of jeopardizing the products that I have, the customer base that I have, the employees that I have. Where do I start? Hey, I've got my own issues where I'm stuck in this mode of thinking. I want to grow. And somebody talked about this whole modularity approach. So where do I start?
I mean, you probably need to start with your mission, right? What's the change you want to make in the world? What's your North Star? Because everything is going to be downstream of that.
Okay,
I mean,
so maybe
it's
I
a
already
lot.
know my mission, though.
Okay.
All
Are you
right.
willing to make serious changes? Because some of these changes are going to be difficult and painful. Like Joe Joseph started out the video I saw saying, a lot of this is going to completely restructure your project management. Which is
Or
why a
get
lot
rid of it.
Or get rid of it.
Get rid of it, actually, is what I heard.
Which is why a lot of companies don't do it. It's just too painful.
Well, Tesla, the model he was referring to, the first two modules they had when he showed up. It had the chassis of the car and it had the battery. That was the two modules. And his advice to them was you need more modules.
Mm-hmm.
So
break it down even more. Right.
So where do organizations start? With what they have. Where are you right now? How many modules do you have? Can those and the idea is, can you break it down into independent things that can be developed in parallel?
Yeah.
And start by breaking it into 2 and then break it into 4
Yeah.
or 3 or 4 or whatever.
I think he said that was the hardest thing to really make sense of where should the boundaries be and what should the interfaces be. I mean, they're not permanent, obviously, but that takes a fair degree of discernment and discretion.
Yeah. He says right now they exist without architects. They exist without,
designers, without
designers, long-term plan.
managers.
But did they always have that? Was there a point at which the last architect turned off the lights as he walked out the door, having created this interface architecture, and then said, okay, I don't need to do anything else?
Once
They're
we were
good.
architects.
Yeah.
Maybe. Or maybe they just became part of the teams.
That's right.
Yeah.
That same skill set still exists in the team. It's still in somebody's brain. They're not called an enterprise architect. They are providing that same guidance in a more efficient way day to day.
Right. Because
Incrementally.
there's no titles, there's no ranks. Everybody is just, it's very flat.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it's entirely horizontal.
Mm-hmm.
And
This
that
is fundamental
that's-
change.
it is. And so I don't know, a large organization, a large company, a large traditional company looks at Tesla and just kind of goes, no, there's no way that would work. I would have to fire 1 billion middle management people.
Why would you have to fire them?
And you're right.
Great
you don't.
point.
But they move down to the front line and they have to be a contributor like everyone else. And they don't necessarily want to do that.
Oh, well,
they're
then-
the ones
then-
who are making the decisions right now, and that's what stops it. Because the lizard brain goes, no threat. Go.
So then maybe they're not a good fit for your company.
Oh, yeah.
So to do all of this requires a level of leadership and dedication. It's not a lot of people who want to do that. I think it's harder than it's almost impossible in some cases, in some contexts. That's probably why it hasn't happened, because it's just so hard, I'm guessing. But I mean, Tesla's the most successful domestic automaker now, right? Like Ford just said, actually, the whole EV thing, right? I don't think we're going to do that. Stellantis is just, I saw something yesterday, Stellantis is going to take a big, I can't remember what they call it, write down, recondition, some R word that meant we failed.
And what's funny is they don't have to have failed. Tesla made most of their patents public domain. The mission is to get more electric cars in the world, not to be the provider of those cars. And
At
there
some
are
point, you
and
get
there are
on this
upstart
train.
there's a lot more electric car companies coming out right now.
Yeah,
That-
it
that
feels
just-
like we are like discovering the fundamental laws of physics, and you either obey those or it's very, very difficult for you.
Yeah.
Very difficult, probably impossible.
I thought was interesting because I really did want to figure out in a very practical way, how does a company go down this road? And it occurred to me,
In a Tesla.
Experiment.
Automatically asleep.
No, absolutely not.
No,
Inten-
yes,
very intentionally,
Yes.
but also in a very experimental way. And so take one product. Take just one product and experiment with it. You don't take the entire company that way. Take one
right.
product and start where you are, which you pointed out earlier. Take one product and start there. And how do we modularize this? And then structure the teams around that modularization. It should reduce some exposure, so you're not risking the entire company, but you also have to almost cultivate a different culture
Yes.
simultaneously, but you can do that in a lab environment, in an experiment. You know, you're not trying to change the culture of the entire company, you're trying to change the culture of just the people involved with this experiment.
And that
Yeah, and the change
experiment,
management's going to be brutal.
that experiment is a module.
Oh, shit.
You
Hold
carved
on.
one module out of your organization to do that experiment in.
That's interesting. I don't know. The thought that I was having is that BMW and Toyota and some other companies are doing this in their current production cars. Like they've got like the current Toyotas are like 3 modules. They didn't go to 7 or whatever Toyota.
Right.
That was-
They got 3.
But
Front
you're
end,
saying
back end, middle.
you're saying, Mike. Was this a joke? Were you saying that the change management is a module?
Well, I was saying
The experiment
that
was a
the
module.
experiment is a module where he says take one product and do an experiment to see if you could do this. That the system that supports that experiment is a module in your organization that you would ultimately want to replicate if it was a successful module.
So you'd set it aside as sort of a skunkworks thing to say, hey, the KPIs for quality and profitability and speed and customer we're going to measure them here versus the rest of the org and whoever competes who.
And they're measured differently, but there's an interface that's backward compatible to the old system.
Fascinating. Yeah, I can see that. It's like the hard part here is the people who don't want to come along on this ride, right? I think, Jeff, is what you're getting at. Like, how do you get from here to there?
Right, and so the way you do that, I can see, is, again, with an experimental model, much of the organization is going to operate the way it always has.
Yeah.
But for this experiment, hey, folks, we're going to do something different here. Do you want to be part of the experiment, or do you not want to be part of the experiment? If you want to be part of the experiment, this is the way it's going to be structured. Okay?
Yeah.
And so those that have an interest will buy in. You won't have to weed out the folks that are, not interested in doing things in a new way. The people that are interested will automatically self-select into, hey, this is something that's interesting. Some people will say, nah, not for me. I'm just going to bide my time here, my last 5 years. Others are going to say, oh, that sounds interesting. I'd like to try that.
Once we were coaches and we had this principle that was like, find the motivated people and build teams around them. I don't know if that was number 6 or number 7, but is that basically what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
I think it was 5.
5.
And if you begin to get some success, and the whole thing is this experiment needs to be self-perpetuating. So you don't just say, okay, this is what we're going to do. It has to continually innovate and change and improve constantly. And then once you see some successes, what can you replicate? Maybe you take that with another product. And so then you can gradually begin to change the organization. Look at it this way. And I don't know how Bosch did this, but one of the examples was Bosch was one of the customers or vendors, I'm sorry, for Tesla. And so they didn't take the entire Bosch organization and flip it upside down.
That's right.
That would have been very dangerous. Maybe productive, but it would have been dangerous. And that's a level of risk that most large organizations, especially with shareholders, are not willing to take. So what did they do? They took one product, as the steering linkage or whatever it happened to be. And they said, this one product, we're going to work with Tesla, and we're going to produce a new one, whether it's on a weekly basis or whatever it is. And so that, therein you've got this experiment, I guess you could call it, this module within a larger organization that has been able to successfully transition itself to a more agile way of doing things.
Yeah.
So can it be done? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to do it, though?
Well, how is that any... So think about when we were applying our trade within an organization. First step was to go in and find the proving ground, the one proof of concept you could do within the organization. Take a small thing, prove that this model could work, and then land and expand from that. And so it's a similar concept, right? They're just, and this is probably a whole nother show, but the organizational antibodies that will attack that fledgling module are mighty.
That is another show. We are coming up on time.
Yeah.
So the show's supposed to be an hour. Anything that we want to say before we leave? This has been fascinating. I love this stuff.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. There's a podcast that Shane Parrish does. He did it recently, which is about there's like how the fundamental principles exist across biology and science and something else. I'm not going to do this justice. We should talk about that. At some point.
Different show.
There's a different underlying unity to all this stuff that we're hinting at. That's anyway, I find it fascinating. All right, Jeff Singleton, Mike Markey,
Matt Beam.
Thank you. We'll see you next time. Saturday mornings at 9, once we were coaches or whatever. Thanks, everybody.
Bye,
You'd like
everyone.
to have a word with us?